Welcome to my channel, Zoe and the Books. Today we're going to talk about books that I've been gifted over the past couple of years. Today's video was inspired by my husband who, a year ago, tomorrow, on Christmas, gifted me a book and has been asking me gently whether I've read it. And the answer to that question is no, not yet. And in today's video, I'd really like to get to that book and some other books that my beautiful friends, family, and others have kindly gifted me over the last year or previous years. And today I'd like to introduce some of the books that I've been gifted. So the first book in my pile is Today I Made a Difference by, well really it was edited by Joseph W. Underwood. It's a collection of inspirational stories from America's top educators. I was gifted this book. So previously I worked as an academic assistant doing academic programming at one of our war colleges, and I took a course as a staff member, and this professor appreciated the coursework that I did in that course and asked if I was willing to do some mentoring for an intern that he had. I said yes. And after that mentoring concluded, he gifted me this book, which was really kind. And in today's vlog, I'd like to read it and just see what these stories have to say. Next up is the book that my husband gifted me last year, which is Lost and Lassoed by Lassoed. So, a little over a year ago, so Chris works at Target, we were doing a spin through the old Target, and we stopped by the shelves, and I stopped and picked up this book and told him that all the TikTok girlies had been obsessing over Lost and Lassoed, as well as some of the other books by Lila Sage, and being the good husband that he is, he took note of this and gifted me this book. But over 2025, I had too many other books on my TBR, and really what I mean by that is I had too many other books on Libby that I had to get through that I simply did not get to Lost and Lassoed. I picked it up at one point, meaning to open it, and I didn't get to it. And so I'm really excited to get to that at some point in the next couple months. Next up, my really good friend Kyle, knowing that I studied Latin American and Hemispheric Studies, meaning from an international relations perspective, I studied Latin America and the Hemisphere from both an international relations perspective, but also taking a broader view of Latin America, trying to understand cultural issues, economic issues, and some of the broader regional issues in both my undergraduate and my graduate studies. My good friend Kyle gifted me a self-help book, but from an interesting perspective. He gifted me What Would Frida Do? A Guide to Living Boldly by Arianna Davis. And I'm really intrigued at what this self-help book has to say about living boldly. I don't read a lot of self-help. I don't believe in what self-help has to say typically, and that's not to say that it's not helpful. I think for a lot of people it might be. For me, I think there's other ways to find help, or I just tend to look inwards for that guidance. But I'm really curious to understand what would Frida do, especially because I studied Mexico in such depth in both my undergraduate and my graduate programs. I didn't study art, but you can't escape Frida's influence, and she's iconic. So I'm really excited about that. And Kyle, my good friend Kyle, was so thoughtful in gifting this to me, so I just can't wait to read this one. I'm excited. Next up, my grandma and my mom are obsessed with Mel Robbins, and the rest of the internet is too. I never jumped on this hype train, but this was on the Goodreads Choice Awards. My grandma loved this book so much that she bought an additional copy for both my mom and I and gifted it to both of us last year. And this book is none other than Let Them Theory. Again, I'm not a self-help girly. I don't know what there is to be gained from self-help. but I'm gonna give it my darndest. I can't wait to hear what Ms. Mel Robbins has to say. A life-changing tool that millions of people can't stop talking about. Will I be one of the millions? I can't wait to find out. My mom and my grandma, by the way, are so obsessed with Mel Robbins and are so bought into her theories, which I've never listened to, by the way. I'm not discrediting what she has to say. Like, I'm excited to read what she has to say and think for myself whether what she has to say is valid. Okay, I'm not discrediting her. I've literally never listened, never read her work, have no idea what she has to say. I'm not discrediting what she has to say. I have no idea. But my mom and my grandma are so obsessed with what this woman has to say. They're going to one of her speaking events in Seattle next year, because my mom lives in the area, at Lumen Field. She's speaking at Lumen Field. That's where the Seattle Seahawks play. Girl, okay, I mean, like, I'm interested. I'm intrigued, at the very least. Next up, I love to bake. I love to cook. And I've been gifted some incredible baking books by the people who love me. One of which, I love the Great British Bake Off. And a couple years ago, Giuseppe Dell'Anno, I'm not Italian, I'm really sorry. Please don't come after me for my pronunciation. Giuseppe won a couple years ago, the Great British Bake Off. The rightful winner, might I add. I was very excited for him to win. But he put out a cookbook, a baking book, called Italian Bakes. This was another book that I asked for Christmas. I didn't ask for Lassoed for Christmas. My husband just picked up on that. This one I specifically asked for Christmas 2 years ago. And my husband got it for me. And I've made one recipe out of this book. But I thought it would be kind of fun to include this in this vlog and try to make some additional recipes. I'm not going to promise how many I'll make, but I'll try to make at least one more during this vlog. The one that I did make was... I'm not gonna say the Italian version. I made the semolina and chocolate tart, which was a really nice, not too sweet chocolate tart. And I made that while my mother-in-law was last in town, and we shared that with friends, and it was delicious. And then 3 or 4 years ago for Christmas, my grandma knows that I'm a good baker, that I like to bake, and I'm known in my family for making pies. My grandma Callie gifted me the book on pie by Erin, Jeanne, I think McDowell. Yeah, that's correct. The book on pie. And since receiving this, I have made quite a few pies in here. I've made the meat pie, I've made the chicken pot pie, I've made the Reuben pie, a lot of savory pies. And then I've also made, I think, like a banana cream pie, and then several of the stone fruit pies, all to pretty great success. And then there's several good base layers in here, or like base recipes in here for like the crusts, but then also for like toppings and things of that nature. I love this book, but I will make a pie during this vlog. The only recipe that let me down was the banana cream pie. That recipe did not go well, so I'm not going to commit to redeeming myself, but I will try to make a sweet pie during this vlog. I will try to challenge myself. And I'm really excited to do that because this was such a thoughtful gift from my grandma, who knows I love to bake and has really tried to foster that in me and has really contributed to so many happy memories of baking over the last couple of years. And then also, tomorrow's Christmas. I'm vlogging this a couple months in advance. This is the first clip that I'm vlogging for my YouTube channel. Yay! It's Christmas Eve. I'm wearing my Christmas jammies. Chris and I do Christmas jammies every single Christmas. Holy cow, that's a tongue twister. This year we're doing Grinch jammies. Christopher is obsessed with the Grinch. We found these at Target, like on discount, and we were like, we're doing those this year. Check it out. Ooh, pretty cute. I also have my little earrings. I don't know where I got these from. Claire's or Target years ago. I don't recall. Thought I'd give you a fit check. But tomorrow, I know I'm opening another book, so I might show you that tomorrow. I might show it to you later in the vlog. And the reason I know is because I accidentally opened it earlier in December. Christopher and I ordered gifts separately for each other, and they arrived in the same box on the same day. And so I went to pull out his item from the box, thinking it was for him, and found both items in the same box. So that was unfortunate, but these things do happen. But I'm so excited because it was another book that I asked for. It was another baking book, which I'm so excited about. So you guys will get more baking content. More baking content. But those are all the gifted books that I've accumulated over the last couple years, and I'm so excited to do some reading over the next couple months and bring you all along for the ride. Thanks so much for joining me. The other book that I got as a gift for Christmas, as predicted, as I told you about, I found out, was The Bread Baker's Apprentice. Chris got this for me after I checked it out from the library a couple months ago and made the best ciabatta of my life. As I mentioned, I love to bake. I have had a love-hate relationship with bread. As you may know, it's a tricky art to master, and I really struggled with online recipes trying to make different types of bread. While I can typically get by with online recipes trying to make banana bread or zucchini bread, things of that nature, I have struggled with more serious breads like ciabattas, for instance, or focaccias, or even just run-of-the-mill white breads or wheat breads or other sorts of grain kind of everyday breads. And this book was the first time that I really had good success with bread and making the ciabatta, and I found that even though it took more effort to make the bread, the quality was so good. So the ciabatta that I made a couple months ago required what was called a poolish, which is basically a pre-fermented kind of starter, kind of like a sourdough starter. So you create the poolish and then go on with making the bread recipe. And then today you will see me make focaccia. The focaccia that I made, he gave me 2 different formulas. You were allowed 2 different formulas, just like a standard bread formula following flour, salt, instant yeast, olive oil, and water, as well as an herb oil, or you could do similar to the ciabatta and add a poolish, as well as, create the poolish ahead of time and then add bread flour, salt, instant yeast, olive oil, and then water. And then, as with regular focaccias, you can add additional toppings, pre-proof, pre-bake, and then as well as halfway through the bake. And we had great results with the focaccia as well. Chris thought that it was too herby following the recipe as we did. I liked it. I like herbs. I like basil. I like thyme. I like rosemary. I thought it was fantastic, dipped with a little bit of marinara. And we found that it had kind of that honeycombed crumb throughout. I think I didn't have a 17 by 12 inch sheet pan. I have a 15 by 12 inch sheet pan. So I think at parts of my bread was a little bit thicker than maybe what the recipe was calling for. And then maybe, I don't know if I overworked it or just didn't get some of the bubbles out, but I did have a couple spots where it bubbled up quite a bit. But I think that's kind of fun when it does that, and I think that's proof of doing a really good job creating bubbles and kneading. And we were really pleased with it. It tasted really good. It was really oily and beautiful, and I think I did a good job kneading it, and I followed the recipe as well as I could. And so far I've had really great success with 2 recipes, and I can't wait to continue exploring this book. Some additional recipes that I guess I look forward to exploring. I really would like to get after some of the sweetbreads. There's a cinnamon raisin walnut bread that I'm really interested in trying, as well as a cranberry walnut celebration bread. And then I also would really like to try the marbled rye bread, the whole wheat bread, and the sprouted whole wheat onion and poppy seed bialis. But this was a great gift from my husband, who knows me so well and knows how much I love to bake. Interesting thing about this book too, it was a James Beard Foundation Book Award winner, and then this is the second edition, the 15th anniversary edition, and so some of the recipes have been tweaked since the first one, as Peter Reinhart, the author, has continued to refine some of the recipes. So the focaccia recipe, for example, is a really good example of that, where he has gone back and edited the recipe a little bit to be more perfected, as he has sought out to make the focaccia recipe even more perfect. So if you're looking to up your bread game, I love Pa Hollywood. I haven't tried any of these recipes, but this so far has been a really great book. And like I said, it requires a little bit more effort. The focaccia, for instance, it was a 2-day bake, and I had to do 3 different kind of kneading sessions. 4 really, if you include the first session in the mixer. And then I had to let it sit overnight, and then I had to let it proof outside of the refrigerator, and then I had to bake it. And the ciabatta, same thing, I had to create the poolish and then knead it several times with the stretch and fold method before being allowed to bake it. But the results are, I think, well worth the effort so far. And again, having won a James Beard Foundation Book Award, James Beard is... the James Beard Foundation Awards are iconic in the cooking world, in the culinary world rather. So for me, it's a pretty big stamp of approval. And so far, yeah, like I said, can't wait to continue to explore this, and so grateful that my husband gifted me this Christmas. So on to the next one. Hi there, checking in. I am currently reading What Would Frida Do? A Guide to Living Boldly by Arianna Davis, and I am 125 pages in. I think I'm a little bit over halfway through. Yes, I'm a little bit over halfway through, and I'm having a little bit of an interesting reading experience with this. This book is doing a lot. I said in the introduction that it was a self-help book, but in addition to being self-help, it's also, as you would imagine, because it's about what would Frida do, there's a lot of, it's also biographical, and it's also exploring her art. There's a lot about Frida's life, there's a lot about her art, there's a lot about her identity and her politics in here. And I'll start by saying those are the pieces of this book that I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying getting to explore more about her life, the things that I knew about on the surface. Like, I knew she was disabled, I knew she had polio, you know, I knew some about the work, you know, the art that she was producing. I knew, for instance, the neighborhood that she owned a house in, I had visited there in Mexico City, Coyoacan. But having even more of those details captured in this book, I've really appreciated that. But I will say, like, the actual self-help pieces, that's the part that I'm not enjoying that much. So this book sets out, I think primarily it says, you know, within the introductory chapter, it says Frida Kahlo is a totemic symbol for hope, for change, for revolution, for resilience. There is no doubt that we can all learn endless lessons from the icon about how to live life loudly, boldly, and colorfully. And so, my fellow Friduchas, here I go, diving in headfirst to explore the clues she left behind for those of us looking for guidance on how to emulate even just a little of her magic. With my imagined Frida looking over my shoulder, I embark on my search for the answer to a question many of us might want to ask ourselves during this journey we call life. What would Frida do? We are looking at different aspects, different things within Frida's life and imagining, as the title says, what would she do? We look at, just in the first half, we look at confidence, we look at pain, we look at love, we look at her style, we look at creativity, and we think about, based on how she lived her life, based on her identity, based on her politics, based on her art, how would she approach these things to live a more robust and bold life? And once we get to that piece about, like, what would she actually do, the recommendations are just, for me, really have been pretty surface level, like things that you can look up on the internet. If you typed in how to be more confident, the recommendations that you're finding in here are things that I think you would find on Google. Yes, she's framing it in terms of how Frida is living, but at the same time, I think that's part of where I'm taking issue with this book. On the one hand, yes, she's framing it in the context of Frida's identity and Frida's behaviors and Frida's life, but at the same time, the author like won't take a stance. There are times when the author says like, maybe Frida would do this, but also maybe Frida would totally balk at what I'm saying. Like, I just don't know. And it's like, okay, lady, you've done all this research on Frida. Like, you need to take a stance. You need to make an opinion or make an educated guess. And if you're doing all this research, if you're writing a book that says what would Frida do, I'm expecting you to be the expert on it. And if you can't make an informed opinion, then maybe you shouldn't write it at all, I guess is where I'm coming from and is the opinion that I'm forming. That's just where I'm coming at it from so far. And I guess the other thing that I'm struggling with this book so far is that I guess especially in the first 30%, a lot of the tidbits of information were super repetitive. A lot of things were being repeated from one chapter to the next, and it wasn't until kind of we got to past the 30% mark that we were starting to get introduced to new information, new fresh biographical information that helped to inform new recommendations and new information. So that's where I'm at so far at the 50% mark. We will see if the remaining chapters change my opinions on how this book is going so far. I think overall my thoughts are that this book was really written with a super wide audience in mind, and so bearing that in mind, she wrote it really broadly. I think it makes sense for something that like you would gift someone and for the audience that she has in mind, but if you're interested in Frida's life, she's pretty frequently quoting and pulling from other people who have written extensive biographies on Frida, including Frida by Hayden Herrera, as well as Diego Rivera, her husband. She's pulling from his biography, his autobiography, My Art and My Life, and some other sources as well that might be more informative and might be more valuable for people who are interested in Frida's life from her own words. The sources that she is pulling from to actually inform her writing, when she is drawing on those particular sources, when she's pulling that into the book, that's been the strongest piece so far. So I'll update you when I finish it. What Would Frida Do? And I don't have too many updates to provide for the most part. what I stated earlier continued. The repetitive nature, similar writing style has continued throughout. I think I would rate this a 3.25. I think it was an okay read. I think what this book suffered from, in my opinion, is that it just tried to do too many things. It's trying to be biographical, it's trying to be analytical in terms of Frida's life, her art, her politics, her identity, and then it's also trying to utilize all of those things and apply those and create self-help lessons that, in my opinion, are half-baked and also water down all of the aforementioned things about Frida and her life in a way that I think don't do a good job of representing who Frida is and all the things that she went through and experienced and also believed in. So that was an interesting reading experience and something to grapple with, but I really did appreciate having this as kind of a primer on Frida's life as like basic background information about her, and I think as an introduction to Frida and her life and her art, this is a good starting place. And I do think that this is like a valuable book, or if you were going to go to a book exchange or a white elephant, this would be an interesting book to buy for that, and I think people would buy it and be interested in it. So not a bad book by any means, but certainly not like expert level text in any of the things that it's trying to do in the art, in the biography, in the history, in the self-help department, but a primer on all the aforementioned things that will require deep dives on all of them. So take that with a grain of salt. In other news, we are in playoff season in the football world, in the National Football League. Christopher and I are huge Eagles fans. They are the number 3 seed in the NFC. They're playing today. It's Saturday, the 10th of January when I'm filming this. They're playing tomorrow. We watched, unfortunately, the Panthers lose today against, who did they play? This is crazy. I just watched this. We watched them lose against the Rams. So we are currently, really Krista downstairs is watching the Bears play the Packers, and we are hoping that the Packers win so that in the future, hopefully, we can play the Packers at home at the Link if the Eagles win against the 49ers tomorrow. And then also in a couple rounds, it wouldn't be the next round. If the Packers win, they'll next play Seattle, but in the following round, you know, assuming we get a couple more wins. So anyways, hoping for a Packers win. It was looking good when I came up here at halftime. So we'll see. I don't know what book I'm going to read next in my Gifted Books vlog, but this was a good starting point, and I just have to say I'm really appreciative to my friend Kyle for getting this for me. It was such a thoughtful gift, understanding who I am and my interests, and even though I didn't love it, I think the thing that I would keep in mind is that it was an engaging reading experience. It was something that made me think, and above all else, that's something that I prize in a book, and so I'm grateful to my friend Kyle for gifting this to me, and looking forward to watching football over today, tomorrow, and Monday, and also walking the dog. I walked the dog earlier today. I'll insert a clip of him being kind of a nut when we were walking earlier today. He got the zoomies when we were walking along the Potomac. So I'll check in with you all in a little bit when I get back to reading some of my gifted books. But in the meantime, I'll talk to you later. Hi there, checking in. I just got back from the grocery store where for pickup we got an astronomical amount of mandarin oranges and limes, and I think we're only going to be using a couple of them for the dinner recipes that we have this week. And so when I got home, I set about thinking, what am I going to do with all of this leftover citrus? And so that immediately got me thinking about my baking books, and the first one that I looked in, Giuseppe's Italian Bakes, the only recipes that really utilize oranges, any type of oranges. primarily was the celebration cake, and that was kind of immediately out because Chris has asked me to make a cake, which I'm planning to do for Valentine's Day, but he asked me to make a chocolate cake, and so that was out. And then the other recipes that do utilize elements of oranges, such as the zest or like candied oranges, they're not using other parts of the orange, and so it doesn't really fit in with the intent of what I'm hoping to do. And so then I took a look at the book on pie, and there's 2 recipes in here that I'm interested in exploring at some point this week. The first is a cranberry orange pie, which I feel like fits the season that we're in right now, kind of late winter, fall feeling, and I think appeals to my flavor profile. I really like sour foods. However, considering the limes, there's also a recipe in here for a striped citrus pie that I think sounds really good and would be a good option for both Christopher and I. And also, if the Eagles, go Birds, win today on Saturday, January 11th against the 49ers and progress further into the playoffs, and we host friends over for future visits, I think having a slightly green pie for the limes would be kind of fun to have. So I'm leaning in the direction of the citrus pie. Let me show you. Look at how pretty it is. It just looks nice. So even though it feels a little bit summery, I just think it sounds kind of good, and it does a better job of utilizing the ingredients that I have, those being the limes and the mandarins. And I think also this pushes me to do something a little bit different. Like I've never made a pie that's based on a curd, so I'd be excited to try that and do something a little bit different for my skill set. And like I said, the recipe allows you to substitute other citrus juices, and I think tangerine or mandarin and lime feels very summer, feels very margarita, which are flavors that I really like. So I'm leaning in that direction. If I end up doing that, I will update you as I get to making my dough and the other elements and components of the pie. But just wanted to provide that quick update about what we've been up to. And also let me just show you how much citrus I have. Look at this. What's going on here? It's ridiculous. So I need to do something with my citrus, and I think the second recipe, the striped citrus pie recipe, would be a good way to go about that, but I'll check in with you later. Okay, I just spent an hour juicing limes and mandarin oranges and also prepping my dough for my pie. I have decided and started to make my striped citrus pie, which is going really well, and I'm excited. And I'll just start by saying that one of my favorite things about this pie book, one, is that there's a billion recipes in here. I mean, there are so many recipes, different pie recipes, in addition to the base recipes. Like, she has recipes for different crusts, as well as I mentioned in the introduction, like different types of toppings. I'm reading right here. She's got like a nut butter whipped cream, a marshmallow topping, a meringue topping, different types of like streusels and curds and glazes, and just like, so you can customize and mix and match for whatever we want to do. But if you want to follow the custom recipes that she has those as well. But then on top of having just a billion different recipes, she also tells you how you can customize each and every one of these recipes to match whatever your preferences and your tastes are. So for instance, with the striped citrus pie that I'm making, I don't have blood oranges, I don't have grapefruit, and I don't have tangerines. But she has, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about this, she has a little note here that says you can substitute other citrus juices in any of the layers here, and that's exactly what I did. So instead of the ones that she has here, I'm using mandarin and lime. And then the other thing that I really love about this book is that she has recommended crusts and recommended finishes. And so every single pie that I have made, historically, I have used her recipe for the all butter pie dough, which is just like a classic pie dough crust, which is just like a butter pie dough. You just like use cold butter and flour and sea salt basically and a little bit of water, and parse the butter really, really small and make it into a disc, and then do like a rough puff pastry method. I've done that for every other pie that I've made, and as I've mentioned a couple times in this video, I've made I think between like 5 and 8 recipes out of this book. And so when I saw for this striped citrus pie that one of the recommended crusts was a citrus rollout cookie crust as well as a citrus vanilla caramelized pie crust, I took it upon myself to look at both of those and see which one intrigued me. And the one that I thought looked best was this rollout cookie crust. And amazingly, there's also variations within this rollout cookie crust to include a citrus rollout cookie crust, which allows you to add in additional citrus, which I thought would be a really good tie-in for this particular recipe because it's so citrus focused. And so basically this isn't going to be like a traditional pie. It's going to be like a cookie base, like a cookie dough base, a sugar cookie base with citrus curd in between. And I think it's going to be really amazing. In other news, I was hoping to make this as kind of a celebration for the Eagles making it to the next round. They, in fact, lost in the first round of the 49ers, so we are big sad in this household. But we have pie to sweeten the deal, sweeten the loss, and the Eagles are already making some adjustments on there, and they fired their offensive coordinator, so we're excited about that. And I don't know, to go back to this book, if you know someone in your life that loves to bake, I really can't think of a better book to give them, just because there's a billion recipes. It shows you how to customize things or gives you different options for customization. It gives you so many fundamental recipes, and also in the beginning it also just walks you through the fundamentals of how to do baking and like how to make sure that you're on the right track. Sometimes, especially with baking, it can be really challenging to understand or make sure that you're on the right path. And there are so many amazing photos in this book and so many how-to guides. Can't recommend enough. So that's the update on baking, and be back with updates on more books later. In the meantime, enjoy the footage with the pie. We're here with the pie. It's been chilling overnight. We just got back from lunch. What have we been doing today?
Fantasy football stuff and other chores.
Chores?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you excited for the pie?
Yeah.
Are you nervous for the pie?
No.
I'm nervous, if I can be honest. Yesterday when I was making the curd, I'm scared it got too thick.
What's the curd?
The curd is
The
green, and then there's an orange layer. So I don't know, I'm just curious how this is going to taste. I've never made a curd before. I've seen the book. So anyways, we're going to cut into it and just hope for the best. I don't know.
I don't need my own slice.
No, we're going to share. We can share. That's fine. I don't know. I'm nervous. I was like pouring it yesterday and I was like, this feels like Jell-O. Is this right?
Also, I think your triangle is a bit wonky, mate.
Whatever. This is excellent serving technique. Don't worry about it.
Well, there you go. There it is. Wow. Look at that sponge. Layers.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it looks nice and smooth like it did in the book, so I guess we can just try it and see. Oh, it's gonna be good. I hope it's good.
What's the yellow?
The yellow's the mandarin. I think it tastes good. You don't like it?
It's pretty sweet.
Well, yeah.
And I think it's a lot of curd, not a lot of crust.
Well, there's more crust towards the back. You just got the front piece. I think the lime is good.
The lime is good. I mean, I'm going back for a second bite. It's good.
It is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the curd's not too thick. I thought it was.
It's really good.
Yeah. You're bringing a dog back?
Mm-hmm.
I know, Wolby. You can't have this. I think it's good. I put zest in the
I have nothing for you.
crust.
Buttery, flaky crust.
It's not flaky.
Buttery, zesty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't make like a traditional pie crust for this one. I made it more like a cookie crust.
Yeah, it's good. Actually, I like it.
Will you eat more of it?
Maybe with some ice cream.
I was thinking that a la mode would have been really good.
Yeah, vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
Or a sherbet. Sherbet.
Okay, bye. Did you like the lime more or the mandarin?
I like the lime.
Yeah, me too. What would you rank it out of 10?
Look at 8.
8?
Yeah, I like it. It's good. The lime is good.
That's good. It took me an hour to juice all the juices.
Don't you have a juicer?
Yes, I do. But I didn't know it was going to take me so long.
Work smart, not hard, babe.
I've never used our juicer. Like I bought that, or I didn't buy it. I think I was given it for Christmas, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was given that 3-in-1 food processor blender juicer. And we use the food processor and the blender all the time, but I've never had a reason to use the juicer.
Huh.
And this would have been a really good project for that.
Should have gotten a 2-in-1 instead.
It was really good. I actually really like that.
I did too. Good job. You killed it.
Yum. Okay, what's another successful recipe out of this book?
What's another?
That was another successful recipe.
Oh.
The only one that's failed me to date was the banana cream pie that I made for our birthday.
Yeah, that one was less than ideal.
Yeah, where it was like soup.
Yeah, I don't even think anybody ate it.
No, because it didn't set.
Yeah, but even though you knew it didn't set, we still took it all the way in DC.
Yeah, because it was aesthetic. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Hi there. Today we are going to be cooking some bread from Giuseppe's Italian Bakes. We are still in the middle of about a foot of snow where I live, which has been totally iced over. And I'm making some soup later today, and I thought that some bread to accompany my Italian style soup would be nice. And so I took a look this morning as I was making our grocery list, tried to think of what could be a good accompaniment and also get us through the week as like a nice snack. And I came across this pucce alla piazzola. Sorry about the pronunciation. And they're described as a traditional type of bread from Salento, the heel of the boot-shaped Italian peninsula. These pucce can be plain or filled with cured meats, cheeses, and vegetables, but this version is filled with an onion, black olives, and then tomato sauce, so as well as capers and actual tomatoes. And Giuseppe says that the result is a very rustic bread with a bit of bite rather than a soft bun. This bread can be consumed on its own as well as eaten to accompany your favorite soup, which is why I thought it would be a good fit. And then I'll show you what these little bites look like. And the recipe itself doesn't look too difficult. You basically just like make the dough, proof it, make the filling, add the filling, reproof it, shape the little dough balls, and give it a go. And they don't have to be perfect, which I kind of like. They can be rustic. And so I am yeah, looking forward to trying this. I haven't tried a savory bake from Giuseppe's Italian Bakes. I've only tried the one tart that I showed you all in the introduction. And so I'm excited to see if his bread lives up to some of his more sweet bakes that he has put in here. And just excited to have this on a very cold weekend day. So enjoy some clips of me making this over the next couple minutes, and I'll be back with some thoughts later. Hello, good morning. I wanted to give you an update about the bread. It was delicious. We had 31 buns yesterday that we made. By the end of dinner, we had only 21 buns left, which I think is an indicator that it was really good. And they came out, I think they maybe got overbaked by like a minute or two, maybe just a minute. But I don't know, they were good. They were fluffy on the inside. They weren't too moist. I was nervous about them being too wet on the inside because we used like a tomato sauce to make them. But that wasn't the case. They were like light and fluffy, but not wet. And they went really nicely with the soup that we made. And I'll just, I don't know, I'll show you like a close-up of like what a little bun looks like. I don't know, here's a little bun. Hopefully that focuses, but I don't know, they smell really good. They smell like caramelized onions, and the olives were a really nice addition, and they colored really nicely, and I think they'd go really well with marinara sauce just because we made them with tomato sauce, and we have leftover soup which they're gonna go deliciously with. And then Chris really liked them too. He's been munching on them. He had a couple today, and we're gonna go get his opinion. So I'm gonna take you downstairs and we're gonna get his raw feedback. So let's go check it out. Chris. What did you think of the bread?
It was dank.
What are your thoughts on the bread?
I like it. I like dipping it in marinara, and it was good with the soup.
You have any other thoughts you want to share on the bread?
No, you killed it.
Wow.
It was awesome. I like it a lot. I like any bread that I can dip in marinara.
You wanted me to get a shot of Marty? You have to go back. Oh. You want me to zoom in? Okay. Oh. Yeah, it's pretty good. Does he have shoes? Hold on, I didn't get the shoes.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Oh. Oh, there they are. Oh. Oh my gosh.
Can edit that out.
No. I just got back from my trip, and during the flight I started and got halfway through Lost and Lassoed by Lassoed, which, as I mentioned, my husband got me for Christmas a couple years ago, and I'm loving it. I think it's really good so far. From the first chapter, am totally hooked by the dynamic between Teddy, who's our female main character, and Gus, who's our male main character. They kind of don't like each other. They're antagonistic towards each other for reasons that aren't totally clear to us from the outset. It becomes clear to us by the halfway point why these two aren't so fond of each other and like what the backstory is. But basically this is like a small town romance. We're set in this small Wyoming town. Anyways, for reasons, these two don't really like each other, and for other reasons they kind of have to work together and be around each other. And the reasons are that Gus, our male main character, is a single father, and he has a really good co-parenting relationship with the mother of his child, but she isn't in town for the summer. And Teddy has just lost her job at the boutique that she works for because it's been sold. And she has actually a really good relationship with the mother of Gus's child, but also Gus's actual child. And so there's like a mutually beneficial kind of arrangement to be had for Teddy to serve as like a part-time babysitter for Riley, Gus's daughter. And so naturally they have to kind of spend more time together as Teddy is taking care of Riley, the daughter. And you know, over time they're becoming closer and spending more time together, and I don't know, it's been really fun. It's just been a really fun dynamic. And I think one of my favorite things about romances is when they feel real, when they feel grounded in reality, when the stories feel like they're happening to real people, and when the circumstances feel semi-realistic. Like, not everything feels extravagant, not everything feels out of the ordinary. Like, a lot of what's happening in this story is like things that I think could be happening to real, everyday, normal people. And then also one of the things that I really like about this story is that there's so many callbacks to the West and things that I love about the West, like the setting, the occupations, the manner of dress, the bars, the places that people are hanging out. Like, it feels very reminiscent of home, or like places that I've been with my friends, or like people that I hold very dear to me. And so those are things that I'm, you know, just really drawn to. And then also I think something that is done really well in this book is that even though there is a kid in this book, the kid isn't annoying. I think sometimes when authors do like the single dad trope or the single parent trope, sometimes the kids are annoying, or the kids feel out of place, or they just feel like a tool, or sometimes the kids are like, they feel older than they are to, like, you know, keep dialogue moving. Riley feels aged appropriately and also feels like a really seamless part of the story. Like, so that's done well. And also the family dynamics, because there's been a couple books, and I haven't read the other books, but it just all feels like it blends really well together, and it feels like it's a story that feels lived in. And I like the banter that we're getting between the two characters, the way that they interact with each other, especially like the dynamic of them not really liking each other to kind of gradually becoming more interested in each other, being more considerate and caring for each other, wanting to know more about each other. And yeah, I don't know, I just finally got to the point where like we're hitting a turning point where maybe they are recognizing that they have feelings for each other, that maybe they haven't been totally fair in their assessment of each other. And I'm just excited to see where it goes and like what happens. And I don't know, this might be a one-day read. We'll see. You might be hearing from me very soon. Probably not today. I'll probably, if I do finish it today, I'll probably update you tomorrow. But just because it's been a long day already. And I don't know how coherent I am at this point, but all this to say, I'm enjoying it immensely. And I don't know, I wish I had read all the other books before this, and I might have to go back and read some of the other characters' stories. It's just great. I'm really enjoying it. But maybe I'll have to go back and read the other two is all I'm trying to say. But I'll keep you updated. Maiden, you up? You can come up. Oh my goodness. I am a doggy. Hi doggy. What are you doing? Oh, kisses. Oh god. Okay, I gotta adjust the shade. What are you doing? We just got back from a walkie. Did we? Yeah, we just got back from walking the Mount Vernon Trail. We'll go see. Hold on. Hopefully that's a little better. No more shade marks on my face. Anyways, last night I finished Lost and Lassoed. I finished it in a day and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars. I have not given a romance 5 stars in so long, and I just loved everything about this. I loved most of all that these two characters and everyone around them were just such adults. They were such adults about their emotions, about how they were feeling, about how they approached the relationship from this, like, I don't know, just from the start. We're just really realistic about their circumstances and like where they wanted to go, who they wanted to be, and just had really real, honest, candid conversations with each other. And rather than letting some kind of big, ridiculous conflict blow up the entire book, these two just, I don't know, talked through things like adults would. And when they encountered conflicts or challenges with other people in life, they just talked through things. And I just really appreciated that. And then also, I think something that I really loved about this book is that it didn't feel too long for a romance. Some romances that get into the 350 to 450 page range, it just feels like it's dragging on for too long. There's too many sex scenes, the conflict is drawn out, whatever is going on is just going on for too long. That wasn't the case for this. Like, everything moved at a really nice pace and was resolved really nicely at a nice, decent quip. And I just really loved everything about this. And like I said, I loved the setting. I loved where we were. I really resonated and connected with the setting, the people, the occupations, specifically like when we're on the ranch and the horses. Loved that. Loved all the details there. And I don't know, it's funny because even though I'm saying like it wasn't too long, I could have spent more time with both of these characters. I wanted more time with Gus and Teddy and even Riley and like all the family and the accompanying characters that there were. And it makes me want to go back and read the first 2 books that are part of this interconnected romance series and the next book, the 4th book. And I really also think that this is like one of the, if not the best kind of interconnected romance book that I've read coming in at a later stage. It just, the whole setting, all the characters, the whole story just felt really lived in and complete. And I loved everything about it. And I don't know, I'll just cherish the times that I was with these characters, and I'm happy I own this book. I can return to it at any point in time, and I'm so grateful that my husband got this for me because I just love it. I think it was so good, and it was just, I don't know, it was just so tender and it was so sweet. And I don't know, just the way that these two characters interacted with each other, they were just so sassy with each other all the time. I just loved that. Just loved it. I don't know, Gus was, yeah, he could be definitely kind of grumpy, but it wasn't grumpy sunshine. Like, Teddy isn't sunshine. Like, she matches his sass equally. I just love their dynamic. So I don't know, I definitely want to read the other 3 that are kind of in this series and just see what else is going on in Meadowlark, Wyoming. But I don't know. Yeah, that's where I'm at with this. I loved it, and I'll keep you updated as I get started on the last couple of books in this vlog. Okie dokie, what am I? I don't know, where am I? I'm like halfway through. Okay, I'm exactly halfway through this edited collection called Today I Made a Difference, which outlines kind of mini vignettes by different teachers around the United States, outlining mostly why they're educators. There's, I think, 4 or 5 different sections, and the first section is basically why I teach. The second section, which so far is my favorite, has mostly been about like the impressions that some students have left on teachers and the lessons that teachers are learning from their student. I'm in the middle of section 3, which is like kind of philosophy on teaching and different teaching methods. And then part 4, I guess, is called Interruption, and part 5 is called Illuminations, and I guess we'll see what those ones are about. I don't know if there's anything that's been particularly like inspirational or amazing to take away from it. Like I said, the second section was my favorite so far. Like some of the lessons that are being learned from actually teaching. One story, for example, was about a brand new teacher who was assigned to basically take on migrant students and as like a Spanish language teacher, and just like the amount of compassion that it taught her in, you know, handling migrant families, migrant communities, and also just like trying to deal with the resourcing within the school and trying to advocate for students that other teachers found to be, you know, kind of a nuisance. I thought that was a moving story. And then other stories had to do with students that dealt with like physical disabilities and, you know, some of the advocacy around trying to integrate them fully into classrooms and make sure that they had kind of an equitable experience. Really interesting. This book was put out in 2009. So some of these teachers have been teaching for 30 years, starting in late 70s, early 80s, and so just the context that we lived in the United States, I wasn't alive for it, but just was totally different. I've seen already 2 different stories about students who had hemophilia, had different blood transfusions, and died as a result of getting blood transfusions that were tainted by AIDS. I think that's crazy that they included 2 stories about that in this book, but just really interesting that these teachers, one, saw 2 different cases like that, but that, you know, they were around during the tide turning when we started to test blood quality before, you know, doing transfusions and giving blood to other people. Really interesting stuff. Just totally interesting to see some of the differences. Just really interesting also that like in all these discussions about education, there's like not a lot of talk about the role of technology. Whereas when I was going through school, and even I think to a greater extent now, technology plays a huge role in the way that students are being educated. And, you know, like computers, for instance, are a huge part of how kids are being taught. Laptops are an integral part of a student's day and sometimes are in the classroom full time. That wasn't how it was when I was going through school. Certainly wasn't how things were, I think, in 2009, but like there's only been really one story that talks about like digital media and digital literacy so far, and the rest have kind of just been about like general impressions and just some of the lessons learned. So I don't know, those are my takeaways so far. It's been kind of an interesting read, not so much for the things that like they're saying about like lessons learned and their thoughts on teaching and like why they do it, but more about like what I'm gleaning from like teaching standards and teaching experiences historically, especially like prior to when I was in school. But I'm curious to keep reading it, and we'll see how I think about it by the end. I will say it like definitely reaffirms my love for and appreciation for the teachers who like take that extra step and make the extra effort. It's not every teacher that does that, but I'm sure all of us can think of that one teacher who, or you know, the several teachers who put in the extra effort with us and like inspired us and pushed us to think creatively or pushed us to think in a different way and led us to, or inspired us to be in the place that we are today. I hold a lot of appreciation in my heart for the teachers who did that, and that's been a good takeaway and a good thing to reflect on as I've read through this, is like holding in my heart gratitude for the teachers that I've come across in my life who made an impact on my life. So yeah, that's been a nice side effect of reading this book, and I'm, you know, looking forward to getting back into it and finishing the rest of it soon. So I'll check in when I'm finished. I just finished Today I Made a Difference, and I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. I think it was fine, but to be completely honest, I wasn't the target audience. The editor outlined in the introduction that the target audience for this really is new educators and existing educators. I am neither of those. And the intent behind this collection is to inspire educators to stay in the profession or to rethink the way that they are educating. If I was in the profession, I think this collection really would have hit the nail on the head. But for me, not being an educator, I personally would have enjoyed fewer stories of greater length so that I had more time to enjoy the story and get to have a greater emotional payoff and just have more time with the teachers and better understand the students or the challenges that they were facing or just the stories that they were trying to tell. Because in most of the cases that I was reading, I didn't feel like there was a huge emotional payoff, or like whatever message they were trying to convey didn't have a major impact for me personally. There were a couple exceptions, like the stories that I really enjoyed in particular were Payson, Yo Soy Maestra, A Teacher Affects Eternity, Where Were You, Making the Cut, and Changing One's Views. And for the most part, those stories had to do with teachers who were learning something from their students, or who, have obtained some level of wisdom over the course of their careers, or who experienced something kind of major in the course of their teaching careers. And one example in the story of Where Were You, one teacher was teaching during the events of 9/11. All the teachers were pulled into a conference room prior to the start of school, so say like 7:30 in the morning, for example. They were told that planes had hit the Twin Towers and that another plane had hit the Pentagon, but were not told how they should relay that information to their students. And this teacher, thought back to when she was in first grade and was being told by her first grade teacher that JFK had been assassinated. And so she was channeling kind of that first grade teacher's grace and poise in communicating that information to her students and being able to field questions, even if they didn't make a whole lot of sense, as she, walked into her classroom to convey this really serious information that totally changed the frame of thinking for people from the United States all over the country that day. It was a major moment, and so I thought that was a really well done and poignant story. But not every short story, 3 to 5 pages, was able to hit on that level, unfortunately. And then the other thing that I'll say with this being an edited collection, I think some of the stories weren't organized in the most effective way. So the first section, for example, was all about like why I teach, and I kept seeing that theme come up again and again throughout the book, and I think that's like to be expected. Like, of course a teacher is going to talk about like the inspiration for why they teach, but in some instances that was like the predominant theme, and rather than that being placed under one of the later sections, it should have been moved to an earlier section. And then another kind of editorial consideration that I had in my brain is that all the authors who were writing in this edited collection were Disney Teacher Award honorees from the year of 2004. And the last two stories in this short collection had to do with kind of reflecting on being part of that Disney Teacher Award cohort and like wrapping up the experience. If they were going to have the last two stories be about reflecting on that experience, in my opinion, they should have had one or two stories at the very beginning kind of introducing us to that experience, whether it was like applying or the process of getting into, or thinking about like what led a teacher up to being a Disney Award honoree. In my opinion, it would have been a nice way to couch the whole edited collection, and then between that you would have had the wisdom of everything that you've learned from a career of being a teacher in between. This would have hit better for someone who is an actual educator, but I am really appreciative of the professor who gave this to me, primarily because it helped me to reflect on all the teachers who in my life have seen something in me and have, tried to foster something special in me, because it's not every teacher is willing to put in that extra effort and like make that difference, and we need a lot more of that. And so it's my hope that this sort of collection will get into the hands of more young teachers who need that push and need that inspiration to stay in this field to try to make a difference for the next generation of students who are coming up. And definitely as we think about like some of the challenges that I think today's learning environment presents. So I will check in with you when I start reading the Let Them theory, but so far this has been an interesting reading experience, and I'll check in soon. Okie dokie. I have started reading the Let Them theory. I've been reading it for 2 days. I'm 70 pages in. I've only been reading it on the metro going to and from work, and I have 2 more days to finish it if I want to finish it by the time I want to put this vlog up. And truth be told, I'm really not loving it. I knew this book probably wasn't going to be for me in the introduction when Mel Robbins was introducing herself to us, and when she was talking about her kind of inspiration for writing this and her desire to write this, something about the way that she talks about her passions. On the one hand, she talks about her desire to motivate people and talk about her own experiences and translate how she got out of a really dark place in her life, feeling stuck and really digging herself out of $800,000 in debt by, little tips and tricks that she motivated herself with and created a career for herself out of. On the one hand, that's what motivated her to create kind of the empire that she built. But on the other hand, and she talked about this at length, it was really a desire to make money. And she talked about that more than I think I was comfortable with, to be taking advice from her and think that it was like an altruistic means of assisting people. The angle at which she's talking about wanting to make money made it feel like maybe this was more of a cash grab than it was a way of providing actual assistance for people that need it. The way that she described how she came up with this thing, this was like the next theory that she came up with. It went viral, and she said, I basically have to capitalize on this and make money on this thing that went viral. Like, yes, on the one hand, it was really motivational and I'm glad it's helping people, but on the other hand, I need to capitalize on this thing through this media empire that I've built and I need to get on it right now. I didn't really love that. So that already made me feel really cynical going into the meat and the potatoes of kind of the self-help journey that she's describing in kind of the main chapters, where she talks about managing stress and dealing with other people's emotions and overcoming comparison and, dealing with other people's opinions and managing relationships with other people. So far, I've really only gotten into managing stress. That's the point in which I'm at. And then I think the other thing that I'm struggling with is that so far she's only said the same thing over and over, which is that you just need to let other people do their own thing. Like, you can't control how other people react to things. You can't control what other people are doing. And so stop imposing that level of stress on yourself, which I think is fairly common sense. I think that's something you could find probably in one of her podcasts. You could probably find that information online. And I think if you really struggled with that level of kind of controlling behavior, you'd probably be better off like going to a therapist than like reading over and over and over that like you just need to let them do them. And then on the other hand, the other side of her theory is like, get empowering yourself to let yourself do the opposite. And that's applied to every single scenario that she's given us so far. And so I don't know if we're going to get any deeper than that. And I also just don't know if like so far there's been an acknowledgement that I think there's situations where letting them isn't always going to be the catch-all. That's not always the perfect solution. Like, I don't think it always is appropriate to let your in-laws say something inappropriate to you or to your spouse. Like, no, you can't control what they say, but maybe it's not appropriate to let something go unsaid. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there are times when you do need to step in and say something to protect your spouse or to protect yourself. And part of that, I think, is the, like, let me theory. Like, you need to let yourself stand up for yourself, or, like, let me stand up for myself. Sure, like, maybe that's part of the argument, but I don't know. I just don't think, like, letting them do whatever is always the perfect catch-all, always the default. It's just been, let me show you how the let them theory is gonna totally empower you to take back your life, take back control, and break through every stressful thing that you've been dealing with so far. Obviously, Mel Robbins has made a very successful career for herself as a motivational speaker through her podcast, and has been, of course, a very motivational inspiration for millions of people. But to my understanding, Mel Robbins doesn't have like a psychology degree. She doesn't a PhD. And while she's done, yes, lots of research and she's interviewed doctors, I guess I just don't think she's as authoritative of a voice on some of the psychological conditions that she's speaking on as maybe other people are. And so for her to be like quoting herself on like managing stress and things like that, it's just a little strange to me. And also, I guess I would just be approaching things with a little bit more humility. It just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know. And just also, yeah, like the way that you open this of being like, like there's just the approach to like money and her story and like how she dug herself out of debt by like basically becoming a motivational speaker. I don't know. The whole thing rubs me the wrong way, and I think it's really strange that like she's basically using her podcast and these little theories that she comes up with to like generate revenue for herself. I don't know. Like, I'm glad it works for her and I'm glad it works for other people, but so far I've just found this to be really surface level and like tidbits and tricks that you can find online of like, yeah, let other people live their lives and try not to let their behaviors and their actions impact your peace. cool, got it, point blank, period. If it gets any deeper than that, like, I'll let you know. But so far, it's pretty basic, and we'll see if it gets anywhere further than that. I don't know. I'm just kind of worried it's going to turn into a hate read, but I'm trying my best here. I don't know. I just don't think we need a whole book dedicated to, like, her theory, the let them theory. This, like, amalgamation of different theories that she's lumped together. I might DNF it. I don't really DNF usually, but I'm just not loving it. We'll see. More to follow. Hi there. Alrighty, I have finished the Let Them theory. And by finished it, I mean, I read most of it. I skipped a couple chapters. I skipped the chapter on comparing yourself, and I also skipped the chapter on romantic relationships because I didn't feel like I had problems there. I'm very happily married. I didn't feel like I needed to, like, the chapter specifically on romantic relationship was basically, like, it ended with, like, do you need to leave your partner? And, like, stop putting so much effort into relationships where the other person doesn't love you. Like, I'm not struggling with that. So I didn't read that. And I feel like with nonfiction where you're trying to learn something, if it doesn't apply to you or if you already know it, don't force yourself to read it if you already understand the concept. And I already spent so much time in this book rereading the same paragraphs and the same information. I didn't need to read it in concepts that I felt like I already understood pretty well. So, alrighty, what did I think about this? I'm giving out my first 1 star of the year. I'm giving this a 1 out of 5. It was a struggle for me to get through this. I so many times wanted to DNF this. It's a miracle I made it through this. For all the reasons that I talked about yesterday, was really skeptical when I started this. I was really skeptical to keep going with this, in large part because I really don't think that Mel Robbins is qualified to be giving this advice and to be issuing a blanket statement of, well, just let them. You don't need to draw boundaries with people that are repeatedly hurting you and causing you harm. Just let them. And then let yourself, do the growth and move on and do other things. Like, I think you'd be much better off if you're struggling with control and if you're struggling with people who are causing you harm and causing you to feel like you have to control something. I think you'd be much better off going to therapy. And that's my opinion. I'm not a psychologist. Like, obviously, like, I'm not a trusted authority. And I really can't help but, from the outset, the way that she set up this book, talking about her number one desire being to make money, I can't help but feel like this is just a money grab. And so it's, again, that too makes it really hard for me to trust everything that she's put into this. But then beyond me just feeling skeptical from, 1, her not having the credentials, but 2, this being in the pursuit of money, setting all that aside, the book was not well written. Like, she repeats the same information over and over and over and over for every single element that you could apply this to. Let them do what they're gonna do, and then let me respond and control how I'm gonna react. Okay, at a baseline level, fine. I think that works. I think that's, fine enough basic advice. But when you go 1 level deeper, I don't know if that works in every single scenario, and that's where I think you need to get an expert involved. I think that's where you need to do some critical thinking. I think that's where maybe you can't be selling this as the end-all be-all fix, and where I think she goes a step too far to sell this as the revolutionary, fix-all. I just, for her to promise that this is going to revolutionize your life, I think is a step way too far and just feels totally disingenuous. And I just fundamentally disagree with the idea that you shouldn't be setting boundaries in your life and that you should just let people treat you poorly and that like, oh, you're just, you know, you should just let them, like, you control your emotions. Like, yeah, you do control your emotions, but I think it's also okay to set a boundary. It's okay to not be okay with how someone is treating you at times, you know? I don't know. And also, just back on the writing too, there would be times in the book where she would say like the let them theory like isn't gonna fix everything, but then on the next page she'd be like the let them theory is gonna revolutionize your life and like be the best thing for you. And so there was some inconsistency in her messaging. I don't know. I think it's, yeah, all I have to say is I think it's just really disingenuous, and I don't think you get to dress up like a therapist and act like you have the expertise. And also I think you could save yourself a lot of time and money by just, like, if you're interested in this theory and what this offers, Mel Robbins has done a lot of interviews. She has a lot of podcasts out there. I would not waste your time with this book that could have been an email, my opinion. So, that's that. But obviously I got this as a gift. I really appreciate where my grandma was coming at with this, and I can put myself in her shoes and understand like why she got this for me and for my mom, considering like some of the family dynamics that we have all had to endure from other people in our family. 100% understand like why she is so drawn to this theory and why she found value in it. And I think it's really sweet that she thought that I would find value in it, but I just, taking a look at Mel Robbins' credentials and her motivations for putting this book out there, I struggle to appreciate what she has delivered us. And I don't see what did she, let me see, on the back cover she says, Mel Robbins delivers her most powerful and profound work yet with the let them theory. I don't think she delivered something that was powerful or profound. So take that as you will. It was really kind of a struggle to get through. So I don't know, and I'll leave it at that. Hi, okay, I'm back and I want to do a rapid fire, who would I recommend the books that I've read for? Like a gift guide, if you will. So first off, for Today I Made a Difference, who would I recommend this for? I would recommend this for new educators, young educators. So basically people who have recently graduated from their teaching programs. So they just got like a master's in education or like their teaching certificates and are just about to become teachers, or like have been teachers for 1 or 2 years. That's who I would recommend this book for. For What Would Frida Do? I would recommend this for anyone who was me when I received this. I would recommend this for probably, yeah, like young women who are like 21 to 23 and have an interest in art in Latin America, or young women that like to travel, or young women that have been to Mexico. That would be my recommendation for like age range and interests. Okay, for Lost and Lassoed, I feel like this would go well for like any woman, any age. Yeah. 18 to 60. Maybe some men too. Why not? I thought it was great. If someone you know likes contemporary romance, likes Western romances, it's for them. Don't let me forget non-binary. Non-binary people can like romances too. Duh. Anyone who likes romances, Western romances, this book is for them. Okay? I said it. Okay, the Let Them theory. I wouldn't recommend this, especially as a gift. I think it's weird to gift self-help. The reason that I recommended, like, that I think it's okay to do What Would Frida Do is because it's like half biographical, half self-help, and like mostly biographical. I wouldn't recommend the Let Them theory. I think it's weird to give self-help. I feel like it's saying something. I don't know. I just wouldn't do it. And also I didn't like it. So I just really wouldn't recommend it. I don't, yeah, nope. Wouldn't do it. Okay, Giuseppe's Italian Bakes. I would recommend this for anyone who's a fan of the Great British Bake Off, like truly genuinely loves the Great British Bake Off. I would also recommend this for people who have been to and love Italy and also love to bake. You have to have both those things intersect. Think of like a Venn diagram. Love to bake, love Italy, boop, the intersection. Or someone who loves to bake and the other side of the intersection or the other side of the Venn diagram is like a second, third, or fourth generation Italian immigrant that wants to get closer to their roots. Because one of the things that I really like about this book is that they are utilizing a lot of traditional Italian ingredients. And so that's kind of interesting and unique. So that's who I would recommend this book for. For the Bread Baker's Apprentice, I would recommend this for anyone who wants to get good at baking bread specifically. That's my recommendation. Someone who says, I want to get good at baking bread. Or someone who says, I love to bake, but I'm so bad at baking bread. Help me get good at it. That's what I would recommend this. I would recommend this book to them, gifting it to them. And then for the book on pie, I would recommend this to anyone who loves to bake. Genuinely anyone who loves to bake, because there are so many good foundational recipes in here that can be applied across baking mediums. It doesn't have to be pies. It can be cakes, it can be breads, like whatever. It can be applied all the way across the spectrum. There are so many good recipes in here. If someone likes to bake, this is the book for them. Write it in stone. That's my opinion. So those are my recommendations for a mini gift guide based on the books that I read that were gifted to me. And I hope you all enjoyed the vlog. If you have any questions or thoughts, I would love to hear about them in the comments. And you'll be hearing from me very soon. Talk soon.